Hello and welcome to the AaronCanDraw Art Podcast. The goal with this podcast is to keep them short and sweet, keep the listeners engaged, and hopefully learn what you want to know from your favorite artists. The first episode is a little bit long because we covered so much in recapping the good and bad of CTN 2017. Today I'm talking to Jon Dewey, a designer and motion graphics animator currently living in LA. Jon Dewey is from Michigan. Him and I both went to the College for Creative Studies, where Jon and I majored in entertainment arts with a focus on animation. Jon was a prop designer on the puny entertainment show Danger and Eggs, as well as a motion graphics specialist for IBM. Jon also wanted to add that if he's not playing D&D, he's probably out doodling or hunting for the best ramen spots in LA. You can find Jon Dewey over on Instagram at Mr. Jon Dewey, that's Jon, John, and you can find a link to Jon Dewey's professional work at behance.net/JonDewart, JonDewart. So with this being our first episode and all, we were still figuring out how to do the audio bits, so please bear with us, they'll be better in the future, I promise. So with no further ado, here's the CTN 2017 wrap-up with my buddy Jon Dewey. Enjoy! Okay, so today I'm going to be talking to Jon Dewey, who is a designer and motion graphics artist based out of LA right now. Yeah. And we're going to be discussing the CTN animation convention that we both just went to.
Oh, yeah, we survived the whole weekend.
We didn't die. We were very tired, but it was a pretty darn good time.
Yeah, no, it's one of those crazy things where you just sort of forget how... But like you think like, oh, CTN, you're just doing a lot of talking to people. You kind of like going through the things you wouldn't think it would be like as tiring as you end up. But
oh man, within like an hour of day one, I think I lost my voice.
No, I definitely had a moment day one where I just went to my car and just sort of took like a 10-minute power nap of just sort of like just put the AC on, just laid back, and I was like not going to move for a minute. Then
so I really hope nobody sees me in here. I just need to take a small nap.
Exactly. Then it's like the alarm goes off and you're like, all right, time to do this again. Back at it.
All right, right back at it. All right, so I wanted to talk to you about CTN and what was your reason for going this year? Like, what were you looking to get out of CTN?
Absolutely. So this is it's my third year going to CTN. It's one thing. It's always nice just because it's kind of a reunion. Just like I get to see you, I get to see pretty much everyone who I know is working, but you don't really get to see on a regular basis. Like CTN's a big, at least for me, it's a big reason that everyone gets together and kind of reconnects.
Yeah, exactly.
Second is I've been doing lots of, at least professionally doing work. I do a lot of freelance stuff. So lots of it is, talking to people, kind of seeing what's out there, possibly getting the foot in the door. And my third reason is just getting lots of critique. Kind of in the spot right now where I'm just sort of looking to kind of change my portfolios or see what needs to be added or taken out, or like, I don't know, I guess a good direction to head in is something for me. So I don't know. I think by the end of the weekend, I think it was super successful. I'd kind of done everything I needed to do, talked to everyone I wanted to talk to, and I don't know, left it feeling pretty great.
Nice. Did you end up doing all 3 days this year?
Yeah, I did all 3 days.
Ooh, bold move.
Yeah, I left a little bit early Sunday just because I was just dead tired and kind of dragging my feet. So,
yeah,
I was like, I'm gonna go home and rest it up a little bit.
No, I totally understand that. Yeah, I think the same thing for me this year. I decided to go down. I had been working on a handful of stuff for like the past, 6 or 8 months or so. I did like a mentorship and I had like a lot of work that I wanted to show that I hadn't put out there yet. And just like I did want like that last little bit of critique and to kind of, get a feel of where professionals saw like my ability. Like, do I reach the quality bar that they're looking for?
Yeah. Or it's like, sometimes you get those little tidbits that sometimes people will throw out, like not even thinking about it. You just go like, oh wait, this changes everything.
Oh yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, and I think that's like the thing we all hope for is that we get a little bit of unbiased feedback. Like after we look at stuff for so long, you can kind of miss like easy things that you're like, oh man, like why did I do that? Like,
right. And then when somebody points to it and they're like, kind of explain this to me, you kind of look at it and go like, I don't have an answer.
I have nothing. I'm sorry for wasting your time.
Yeah, it's like the answer is because I've been staring at it for 18 hours and forgot.
Yes. But no, I think overall it was also a pretty good trip for me. We kind of treated it as more of a vacation and, like you said, a reunion too. It's been 2 years since I've been down there and I haven't gotten to see everybody. But we also did treat it as a bit of a vacation from gray Seattle. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, I mean, if you're going to be here, you got to do it right?
You better believe it. So I had another question. Did you do any of the portfolio reviews this year?
I did. So CTN was, I think they did it a little bit last year. And they kind of fixed it up since, where you can actually sign online to kind of get pre-approved for portfolios.
Yep.
So I had one at Disney. That I actually was able to get through on that one. The other two, I kind of missed a deadline, so that's on me. But the day one, I just sort of made a beeline for the Nickelodeon booth because they were the people I really wanted to talk to.
Very cool.
And made it in, so that was great. And then actually Sunday when everyone was sort of sleeping in or kind of brushing off party night, I was able to I ran into the person who had reviewed me and said, like, hey, I really appreciate the feedback. I'd love to talk to you a little bit more. And he kind of like looked around and was like, just come over here. And we sort of had another like more in-depth talk.
Dude, that's really good. I think that's another good thing is that, like, if you can catch someone like in like their in-between moments, like you can really get an actual honest critique out of somebody.
Yeah, especially because some of these studio reviews, like it's tough just because you have I don't know how many people go to CTN. Like I don't know what the final numbers are, but it's an absurd amount of people. And so portfolio reviews, especially at big companies, are like 3 minutes, 5 minutes tops. They're just sort of like flip through your stuff. They go, cool, like it. Keep doing that. All right.
Yeah, they're just churning through people. And like you are really only going to get so much of an honest critique that way, right? Like you're gonna get like an initial impression, but like you're really gonna miss something that could be very important and influence what you're going to be doing for the next couple of months, right?
Exactly. No, like I don't know. At least for me, my big thing is you getting reviews from people, and then I don't know, kind of following up with them throughout the weekend, kind of saying like, hey, like you gave me a review, thanks a lot. And then lots of times, once you have that kind of second connection with them, I guess I don't know how you would describe it, but like. Then they're more kind of they remember you, and two, when you ask for kind of like a follow-up, they're more apt to being like, yeah, sure, like, and then they sort of remember your stuff and go like, oh yeah, you were this person, I wanted to tell you XYZ thing that we didn't get a chance to.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call. That like, so the same thing happened to me as I had my mentorship with Ty Carter from Blue Sky this year, and then on Saturday, somehow, some way, after the humongous line that wrapped around the whole building, I went in and there was nobody in front of his booth. I'm like, how? And
you just sort of make a beeline for it because you're like, there's got to be something I'm missing, but
yeah. And like, I didn't get to talk to him much like the day before, and then afterward, on Saturday morning, I went up to him. He's like, dude, like, hurry up, come over here. Like, I want to see what you've been working on. Right. And like you said, like that quick moment where like they're actually like not distracted with a million other people or with like trying to like sell themselves or their brand.
Right, exactly.
You can finally like, quick, I gotta sneak in and like steal all the information I can.
Right. It's like, just like get in here, gotta look at your stuff. Like I really like it's one of those crazy things where, especially with people who are exhibiting, who have booths, like they like, especially if you kind of, have a little bit of a history with them, they definitely like want to talk to you and like want to like talk to you for like half an hour. But, when there's people kind of filtering through the booths all the time, you don't want to like, they're kind of in a tough spot.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So one of the things I wanted to bring up about the portfolio review thing is that, so this year I didn't sign up for any of those. Like years in the past, you could just kind of like wait in line and then like they would review you. Yeah. But now they've kind of switched it up a little bit.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of, so basically, yeah, online, they do like a couple weeks before CTN, they have like the pre-approval process for just sort of general reviews. But the whole wait in line forever is the same. Like there's still people day of who like are in line to get their reviews, and there's, lines out the door, and the kind of by like Sorry, I'll try that again.
No, you're
good. They're lines out the door, and so your portfolio reviews are a little bit short. It's kind of like a quick, like, hey, this is what I'm working on. Like, get some quick feedback and out.
Yeah.
So that, I think, just being the nature of CTN and the amount of people that show up is kind of always there.
Yeah, like that was one piece of it, like advice I kind of wanted to like stress to, you know, kids that are interested in going to CTN for the first time or anything, is that the artists that work at the places you want to work probably have a booth.
Mm-hmm.
If you go talk to them, will actually give you a critique that is probably more meaningful, more in depth, and you're going to get face-to-face interaction with the people that you would work alongside, right?
Oh, yeah. No, and to that point, the person who had reviewed my stuff at Nickelodeon sort of said, like, towards the end of it, he's like, I want to talk to you more, but, you know, short on time, but here's my booth number. Just like, I'm going to be here all day. And so I kind of took that and just sort of like, I found a moment when he wasn't super busy and sort of said like, hey, I really appreciate the feedback. Like, I have the, you know, couple follow-up questions or curious about a little bit more. And not only did I get a super great, like, more in-depth critique from him, but he was like, so for me, I do lots of characters and props. He was like, I really like your character stuff. I'm not a props person, but my buddy, like, 2 booths down does.
Nice.
And so you kind of get that, like, you know, the people who know each other all know, like, what everybody does. And so you get some good opportunities that way that you wouldn't if you're just, you know, in line and do your quick review at the, you know, the big Nick booth or the big wherever booth.
Yeah, definitely. One other question I had about talking to people in booths and stuff. Do you, like, when you are going to approach somebody at a booth to get a critique, are you, I don't know, I'm trying to find the right way to word this. Will you purchase something from them in order to, like, validate your, like, time and investment with that person? So, like, let's say you're like, you want to critique, like, hey, can I buy, like, a postcard or a sticker or something? And then you're like, hey, like, also, would you mind looking at my things?
I usually actually do it afterwards. Like, you know, I'll kind of talk to them and then say, like, oh, you know, I have some stuff, and kind of, you know, have a chat, get some feedback, and then usually sort of like, hey, you know, I really appreciate your time. Like, you've talked to me for like 20 minutes, and then usually I get something just because I think, one, it's nice, and like, and 2, usually if I'm asking somebody for a critique, it's an artist that, you know, I love and respect and would like to support. Yeah,
exactly. It's I don't know, it's for them to show that, like, you appreciate their time, not so much just like, hey, here's my tchotchke, like, thanks, but.
Yeah, it's not one of those just like, oh, hey, I'm buying your thing, please look at my stuff. It's, hey, no, I really appreciate your time. Like, I'd like to support you and buy your book or your postcard or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's a really big deal. Like, I did that for a handful of the people I talked to this year. Patrick O'Keefe from Sony Animation. Like, I've been a fan of that guy's stuff for years, and he like remembered me and knew me, and he was super nice. And I was like, I would love to buy a print. Like, thank you for looking at my stuff and actually taking time to give me, like, a real critique. Like, I was
it's
super duper appreciated.
Yeah, it's kind of that, I don't know. Maybe you can speak to this a little bit more, because you actually did have a booth at CTN.
I did indeed.
Was it 2 years ago? A year ago?
Yes, 2015.
And I mean, one thing, it's like, you know, getting your name out and showing your stuff. And I think maybe you could explain this a little bit more, but lots of it is, you know, like, you have stuff to sell, and I don't know, it's one of those things where it's like, critiquing somebody takes time, where you could be talking to other people, and so I think it's, you know, I don't know, super nice.
I mean, like, I was super receptive to everyone that came up, and I am, as you know, like, me personally, I'm just like a relatively polite and nice person.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm also the most excited person to be here. Like, I would love to look at whatever you have.
Right. It's like, you have a book, like, give it here. I want to see.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, like, you know, I loved doing it. And if someone was nice enough to support what I was doing, like, I super appreciated it, and I did not expect it at all.
Right.
And I think, just like, personally, if I were to get a critique, like, I think it's just like a nice gesture. Like, if you value that person's opinion, then, you know, maybe you value
absolutely.
Stuff too.
Yeah. And then, at least for me, on a personal, like, most of the time, it's like, most of the time through, you know, Instagram and stuff, you kind of know, like, what people have, and you're like, oh man, I really want to get this book or this print, or and so it it's one of those things where it's like, yes, I would like to talk to them, but like, also I do really want this book.
Yeah, I just really want their stuff because it's great. Yeah.
Because it's like, even if I didn't get a chance to talk to you, I'd probably be buying your book at some point.
100%. One other good piece of advice that I haven't gotten to do myself, but I've seen other people do, and it's gone over super well, is having leave behind things for the people you're talking to.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, so I mean, like, of course, you know, like a business card, you know, like everybody has a business card. But a couple of people that I know have done like super tiny prints of their stuff, or like my friend Chris did a lino cut like ink print.
Oh, he actually gave me one of those. I actually have it hung up on my wall because I think it's the coolest thing.
And it is super cool, and it's like handmade. You're like, whoa, like I'll remember this person that
exactly
gave me this thing.
Like somebody gave you like a piece of something that they worked on. Like, that's wild. Like,
yeah. Another, when I did my booth 2 years ago at CTN, an artist by the name of Benjamin Hale had me review his portfolio, which was phenomenal, by the way.
Nice.
And I'm like, why are you asking me to look at this?
Yeah.
And then as a thank you, he's like, okay, like, thank you so much. Here is a hand inked drawing. A full 8.5 by 11 sketched inked illustration.
I probably would have just like,
what?
It's like, no, like, I don't. It's where you feel like it's like, I can't accept this. Like, what? It's the other way around.
Yeah, I'm just like, I was absolutely baffled. I'm like, this is insane, and I've remembered him ever since. Like, he like is awesome, and I instantly remembered him. And like, if he was looking for a job recently, I'm just like, oh yeah, that's the guy. Like, I gotta like,
right. It's like, because you like, yeah, it's like you kind of see somebody saying like, oh, hey, you know, like looking for work or whatever, and you're like, no, I remember this dude. I've got this awesome thing that he gave me. Like, it's wild. No, I know. My buddy Melanie, who you've met, did a small run of like enamel pins.
Yeah.
And so that was one of her things, is like, she would be like, hey, like, thanks for the feedback. Like, I have a couple pins if you want one. And
that's a good idea.
One, enamel pins are just really big. Like,
yeah, especially right now.
Yeah, right now they're super big and like they're super cool. And so people, you know, at least everyone she would show them to was like, oh yeah, like this is awesome. Like, she had one of like a French press and like a seagull, and it was
awesome.
Yeah, so it was. People always like little gifts. So
I think that's a really good piece for people to kind of think of moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to get into some nitty gritty questions about CTN, the nuts and bolts.
Ready for them.
What people are here to listen to.
Let's do it.
All right. So, John, what is in your portfolio that you are showing, and how was it received?
Sure. So this was actually a big thing for me kind of leading up to CTN, because at least a few weeks before, I'd kind of sat down and kind of went through all of my notes for my old portfolio, and then just like taking that and like helping it to shape my current one. So my big passion is like story art, character design, and then recently props has been my big one. So for me, it was a combination of like character designs. So I'd have like example, I'd have like a character, then like a turnaround of the character, then like I would have a lineup of like, who are these characters' friends, like little moments from like that world, and then I would have a page of props, just sort of like reinforcing like, hey, this is like what these people use, kind of showing what I can do as an artist, but also kind of having a full kind of narrative go through. Like, so so just having the portfolio flow a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
And as far as how it was received, I would say pretty well, compared to like, you know, earlier years when I was not as prepared or didn't really know what to expect. So I definitely got a lot of really good feedback and a lot of really good critique. One of my biggest critiques was that I just needed to have two portfolios, like one for like only props and one for only characters. Cause lots of people are saying like, your stuff's really good, we love it, but like, it's just a lot. So it's like, it'd be better if you just had two things.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah. Because one person was like, hey, if you showed me these 3 pages, I would say you're a character person. If somebody showed me these 3 other pages, I would put you in props. So it's like, it's great you can do both, but like, depending on who you're showing, maybe have 2 ready.
That is totally valid.
Yeah.
And like you and I had talked about this briefly before we started recording, that I don't know, like a lot of kids that go to CTN have this impression that like, oh, I'm a character designer, I'm going to get a job as a character designer.
Yes.
And
that's
I
a
think
tough one.
A lot of kids need to kind of be, I don't know, like they need to wake up a little bit.
I would say be wary, or just
Yeah,
kind of,
that
or
is
maybe have an understanding that design, especially character design in, feature or in TV, is a very, I don't know, how would I even describe it? Like it's a
highly competitive, very small market of people that do that job.
Yeah, there we go.
Like it doesn't mean like you can't be good at this and still do it. It just means like the cards are definitely stacked against you a bit.
Yeah, it is a tough competitive job, like you said. So like It's one of those things, like if you want to do character design, that's great, but like also like, I don't know, I don't want to say have something else, but I think that's an important thing to have. Like, hey, if you're doing characters, also have props, or also have layout, or also have storyboards, like something to set you aside from not just being a character person.
Yeah. I don't know, like with the stuff that I was showing this year, I did my absolute best to stray away from character design. I had 2 pages in there that demonstrated it in case I was ever asked for it.
Right.
But like I mainly tailored things to be like, okay, this is like moment painting stuff. This is prop design stuff. Because if me personally, if I'm going to squeeze into a studio as like the base level person, I'm not going to be doing huge story moment paintings. I'm going to be designing probably beer can labels and street signs.
Yeah, so it's one of those like kind of acknowledging that, if you're getting your foot in the door in the industry, like you're not, well, I won't say never, but statistically you will be starting kind of at a lower position where you may not be like the head character person.
Yeah, and like I think it is valuable for people to understand that sooner and maybe make a decision like, okay, well, if I do like doing characters, but like if I think I can squeeze in maybe designing props or doing background painting, like maybe that's how I get in, and
exactly.
That's how I can survive.
Yeah, it's like if you could do if you do characters and that's your passion, that's awesome, and like don't stop doing that by any means. But like also like if you also have a flair for layout or storyboarding or I don't know any of the other facets of like any sort of pipeline, like that's also very valuable, and it's something that you can kind of have as like a card in your pocket for it's like, oh, hey, we're not looking for a character person, but we can do where we're looking for layout or story or anything else. You could be, oh, well, also I have work that shows that off as well. And,
yeah, definitely
working your way from there.
So we even have a point of reference for this. So our friend Kyle Bowman, who was a 3D modeler and stuff through and through, did it all through school. He also was a very talented illustrator.
Oh, super
but just
talented guy.
Didn't put as much effort or emphasis on that aspect of his, repertoire.
Right.
And after years of doing some 3D work, some, like stuff here and there, he eventually just made a props portfolio and was hired at Titmouse.
Yeah, it was like, it blew my mind because I, at the time, didn't know he was working on it. Like, I'd known him as Kyle the 3D person. But then seeing, he kind of took a step back and said, like, I've been doing this. I'm going to try my hand at this. And then lo and behold, that's where he got his job, which is awesome.
Yeah. I think like it is just another testament that like, if you want to break in, maybe look at what all of the jobs like in a production pipeline entail, see what they might be lacking, see what hole you can fill in a production.
Yeah. Like don't count anything out saying that like this is not the thing I can do. Like if you think you can learn something and like spending the time to be fill a spot that you don't see filled at a company, it's worth checking out.
Yeah. All right, I think I have a couple other things to ask in general. Sure. People looking to get into large studios and if that is an actual thing that they can do.
Let's let me think how to phrase it. I mean, it's not impossible. It's very difficult.
Yes.
Especially because I don't know how these big studios are run. There's, you know,
I mean, it's like each production has like different ramp up times and has different like production schedules, and like it's certainly hard to get in there. And like I think a lot of people underestimate the job market in much smaller studios. And
oh no, there's definitely value in that. Kind of to what you were saying, like at least lots of the work that I found has been in smaller studios on shorter gigs, and it's granted, I mean, it may not be like the dream job that you're aiming for, but you get lots of work for your portfolio. You get, you know, on the job experience. You get to learn how pipeline works. I mean, at least for me, a big one was like learning to work with other people, or like, because sometimes, you know, when you're working on a huge project, you kind of let me try that again. When you're working at home, you kind of forget like, oh yeah, this is a studio of other people I get to work with and like collaborate with. And at least for me, I love the studio environment for that reason. Like being able to, like, while you're working on something, being able to kind of call someone over and say like, hey, take a look at this real quick, versus when you're at home kind of going like, well, I hope this works.
Yeah. Hope this doesn't suck.
Right.
No, I know exactly how you feel. So like a handful of months ago, a student from Otis had messaged me for some feedback, and I was told by her teacher, like, hey, can you talk to her about some other job opportunities that aren't Disney or DreamWorks or something?
Right. I'm
like, sure, like totally, because I think a lot of, you know, students that are in kind of like the animation mindset of like, oh, I'm going to work in TV or film animation stuff, forget that there's other markets for like motion graphics or video games.
Yeah. Like, I think people underestimate like knowing Premiere and After Effects is a skill that a lot of people who exclusively do illustration design don't have, or maybe don't have as much as somebody else. So like, there's been so many times I've gotten called in for interviews because it's like, oh, granted, I can do design and stuff, but I also know After Effects and I know how to like do some editing, and, you know, having that little bit of extra edge on something is always good.
Yeah. I think having like, you know, I've had to use After Effects a handful more times in my job's like setting than I ever thought I would for a concept artist, illustrator person. But yeah, like for job opportunity stuff, like there are mobile games, like there are a million mobile game studios and they make a ton of money.
Oh yeah, it's wild. Like,
people should not underestimate that market. Like, it is the job I have that pays my bills. And people are like, oh, mobile games, that can't pay a lot. But all these mobile game studios are owned by like the largest producers.
Exactly. Like
yeah. So don't be afraid to branch out from only thinking that you can do TV animation or something along those lines. There's a lot of other opportunities that can definitely be fulfilling for your career.
Yeah, and I think part of that is like, at least I can only really speak to like us going to school. Like they were very big on pushing big studios.
Yeah.
And you know, the smaller ones would either not really get brought up, or like it was never a perspective that I was ever really like taught is really not the word, but like it was not really the lens to look at things. It was like, oh, just keep going for the big jobs, which is great and something, you know, I keep doing. But like I find that I find the most work in, you know, freelance stuff or smaller studios, and it's all super rewarding work. Like
yeah, I think if people are able to kind of, I don't know, view it as like a stepping stone, it is totally okay. Like, I know a handful of people that started out in smaller companies and now work for bigger ones. My friend Mike worked at PopCap, the place I work right now, and he moved on to Warner Brothers to be a background painter. My friend Vince worked at Disney Interactive and now works on DuckTales.
Right. It's
like, don't be afraid to start somewhere and use that time to hone your talents and still be successful. Like, your goal after graduating is basically survival.
Yeah.
And like, you have to realize that like, if you don't have that job that is Disney or DreamWorks or whatever, it's okay. You are still
exactly.
surviving, and you're going to get better as you go. And then once your skills are up to whatever the quality bar that studio is, you'll be fine.
Yeah, no, I definitely had that, like, I guess the big thing is, like, it's not a race.
No, it is not. Absolutely.
Because I think when I graduated, I definitely had that mentality of like, oh, I got to get that big job and I got to get it now. And then like 3 months out of college, not having that, it just sort of like, at least mentally sort of killed me. And then having that moment of just like taking a step back and being like, there's work for me. And like, even if it's not the thing that I aspired to do, it's still work. And it's still like I've learned more at my, first couple jobs than I've done anywhere else. Like you do so much like learning and realizing like how things actually work versus how you're maybe like taught things work.
Yeah.
And I think it makes a vast amount of difference when you actually do start applying to the bigger jobs, kind of saying like, hey, look, I've worked at these 5-6 companies doing these various aspects of production. And it definitely gives you more of a stepping stone than the people who just kind of go straight for the big job without maybe having that experience.
Yeah, I think it's a super valuable thing to tell people that your goal is to just keep growing. It's not to jump to the finish line.
Right.
That you just have to learn and try your best to keep afloat for a bit. So do you have any last advice like that you give people for CTN or that like you think would be helpful for people considering going?
Yeah, I do. I have to like figure out what order to put them in, but one of the big ones, this is less on actual like having work and stuff, but like Airbnb. Because,
oh man, yeah.
So I guess for people who haven't gone, CTN is in this big hotel, and those rooms fill up quick and they're kind of pricey.
That is correct.
So for somebody who's maybe in school or out of school who wants to go, like check out any of those kinds of services. It sounds like a plug for Airbnb now. But
yeah. By the way, we are not sponsored by Airbnb.
Right. Ding.
Yeah.
The other one is like reach out to people that are also going kind of ahead of time. Like that can be an invaluable like part of it, just saying like, hey, if there's an artist you admire, like kind of saying like, hey, looking forward to seeing you, like I'll also be there. That
is a huge thing. I 100% suggest that.
Yeah, I had that moment myself where so I worked on this Amazon show Danger and Eggs for a brief time. And I didn't actually get to meet the director, the creator of the show while I was there. But we followed each other on Instagram, and we both knew we were going to be at CTN, so we kind of had that moment of like, well, hopefully we'll bump into each other. And then luckily Sunday we did. We both were just sort of like in the lounge area exhausted, and I was like, oh, hey, there you are. Hey. We made it work. And so I guess, yeah, like, reaching out to people, having like, I guess like having your stuff prepared and being very open and ready for critique. Cause CTN is a big one. And if you ask somebody for critique, you kind of have to be ready for it.
Yep.
Which is not to say that people are mean or malicious about it, but like people will give you critique based on like what you have and what they see. So, for me, one of my big things is write things down. I've seen so many people and I've heard people who have given critiques like for the bigger studios saying like, it can be so frustrating when you're giving somebody very specific critique on a project that they have, and then them just kind of go like, okay, cool, and then leave. Because then they, at least, our friend Kate, who I think it was a year ago, was doing reviews at Nickelodeon, kind of said like, it was incredibly like frustrating to kind of like, take some time and give somebody like real feedback that would help them, and then kind of have them leave and not knowing how much of that they would remember.
Yeah, I think that is a great piece of advice.
Yeah, because that was one for me, is just like writing down everything. Like even if you think it's something or it's something that you've like heard 800 times, it's important to write it down, because then when you look back, it's like, oh, the consistency, like maybe I need to do more turnarounds on my props, or maybe I need to use like more, I don't know, whatever it may be. Kind of having, that's something I noticed during my kind of post CTN, was looking at my notes saying like, oh, I'm consistently getting this feedback. So for me, it's like, okay, cool. Like now I know what to change, what to revise, like where to go from.
Yeah, I think, dude, that is a super good idea. I honestly wish I would have probably followed that myself. Like I have a relatively decent memory, but there are very specific things that like, if I go through all the work that I showed, I'll like remember like, oh yeah, so-and-so pointed this thing out about this.
Yeah. It's like, there was something about this page and it's like, what was it?
Come on, brain, do your thing.
Yeah. Writing things down for me is just because I know I don't have a great memory, or it's like, I'll remember kind of like why things like, oh, you should have more props, more characters, whatever. But like the little nitty gritties of like, oh, you have a, I don't know, small line tangent here, or maybe you should do like maybe instead of looking like this, it should look a different way. That was all stuff that was super valuable. I know during a critique, a guy was like, do you need me to slow down? And I was like, no, like keep talking. Like I'm jotting things down just feverishly. It's like, it looks like I'm not paying attention, but I'm just trying to get all of this.
I promise this really matters to me. I didn't just black out. Everything is fine.
Exactly.
I do think that you made a super good point about the Airbnb thing. I wish that it was a thing when we were in school, because I really could have used the savings of money.
Yeah.
So with us flying down from Seattle there, like a couple weeks ago, or a week ago, I guess now, we were 5 minutes away from the convention center. It cost us, it was a little under $100 a day, and we had 4 people in there with ample space to sleep.
Right. And that's like just as fine as the people who, paid upwards of a couple $100 for a room for the weekend. And
yeah, I think that is absolutely the way to go. Like 100%. We ended up renting a car, which we needed because we were doing other things that weren't just CTN.
Right.
But I think it was like a $6 Lyft or Uber to the convention center, which if you do that once or twice or so, it's not
like
that
once or
big
twice
of
a day,
deal.
like 3 times a day. Like that's not crazy. And especially with like,
your
coupon codes or whatever you get.
Yeah, that and like splitting it between 4 people or something. It was like $2 per person per trip.
Right. And it's so easy to swing that. Like, yeah,
I don't think that is a big deal at all. I'm trying to think of any additional advice that I had for people. I think
I have one that's maybe more suited to me, but throwing myself under the bus. Don't print and design your business cards in a panic before CTN. Have that planned out ahead of time, because I think I've shown
your sweet time.
I think I've shown you where kind of in a panic daze, realizing I did not have enough business cards for CTN and doing just like a quick print and send it like through, I don't know, wherever, and sent it to myself and realized I had a typo on mine.
So also, not to throw you under the bus, I believe I told that story to somebody recently pre-CTN, and they're just like, oh no.
No, like if I can be the cautionary tale for that, like that's perfect, because like there's nothing worse than having your professional website spelled wrong when you hand it to somebody.
Yeah, that's a sweet burn.
Yeah, and it's like, and luckily, like you and a couple other people caught it before I was actually handing it out to like somebody who I may have a potential job with. Like, it's it was not my starring moment, but you definitely learned from it.
Yeah, that is a super good idea. Some things that I experienced that were a little rough on my side. Have all of your CTN stuff done at least a week in advance. I ended up working until 4 a.m. the night before we left on a 6 a.m. flight. Threw everything onto an iPad. It ended up working out fine, but I was basically a zombie the whole first day I was in LA.
Yeah, and especially like with electronic stuff like iPads and stuff, like just make sure everything's charged and ready. Like, you don't want to have that moment where you're ready to show something and just
it doesn't work, because that happened to me. I had all of my work ready. It had worked the entire day before. It was in like a Dropbox folder. Everything was downloaded locally onto my iPad and everything was fine. And the next day, for some reason, it's like, oh, unable to load folder, as I'm about to show my mentor. I'm like, everything sucks.
You're like,
and
my
then my stomach
professionalism.
knotted up and I wanted to vomit. So I believe me, you, and Melanie went to Starbucks, and then like I re-downloaded everything, and I'm like, okay, I think we're good, guys. And she's like, did you test it on airplane mode to make sure that it works? I'm just like,
It's like, that would do it.
boy, yep, I will do that. Thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah,
Test it again, test it a third time. And then if you think it's good, have someone else test it and make sure everything works in the exact order you want. And there's no other way it can be interpreted.
If you can hand your iPad to your grandma and she can pull up your work, you're probably good.
Nailed it. Yeah,
No,
that was a really rough, I don't know, a couple of minutes there for me. I seriously just wanted to crawl into a hole and
no,
die.
That's at least for me, that was why I opted to just print mine like just at the Kinko's and just was like, all right, just like get this out, just because I am like a prior CTN. I had that moment of just like the weekend of tech trouble. And so like, you know, make sure that make sure you're prepared for it, I guess.
Yeah, I think that is a really big thing. Just really do your job to make sure that everything is together and well planned, and have someone else run through it too. Don't just think that you didn't catch or that you caught everything, because odds are you didn't. Yeah, I had Sarah read over it, my girlfriend, a handful of times. I had my friend Chris look over it. Also, when you're designing your business cards to hand out to people, because you're handing out probably 100 over the course of a weekend, have somebody that is a graphic designer or something look at it.
Yeah,
because people that only draw characters or props or whatever, we're not exactly the most savvy like graphic designers on the planet.
Oh, exactly. No, it never hurts to have somebody who with that skill set take a look at it, because you never know. I know with like old versions of mine, I would show it to like, this is what I'm thinking, and they'd be like, no, never do that.
Please don't. Yeah, I sent off the back of my business card to my friend Chris, who's a graphic designer. And he's like, yeah, everything looks great, except for this letter, this letter, this letter, and this one. The kerning's wrong here. The indent's wrong. I'm just like, oh, thank you, you sweet, sweet, beautiful man. Like, you've just saved me all of the headache. And I looked at it, I'm like, yeah, all those things are wrong.
Yeah, and then once it's fixed, you're like, wow, I've got a better card for it. Like,
yes, it was a wonderful thing to have somebody check over it, because if you're handing out so many, please just look like a professional. Take the extra step to have someone else look at it too. Yeah,
like you'd be surprised what you miss just sort of in the whole prep phase of just sort of like getting everything together. Like, sometimes easy things can slip through the cracks, and it's better somebody else catch them.
Yes, and when ordering your business cards, please use FedEx or Moo or something.
Absolutely.
I did receive one business card from someone that I believe was cut out by hand, and it was intended to have rounded corners, which, if you know, trying to do that with scissors, maybe not the best thing.
Doesn't always work.
Yeah, it is a little wacky and kind of like off, like it's not parallel. It's kind of like a weird like rhombus card. I'm like, okay,
like, sure. Or on the flip side, and like I've seen people say like, hey, do you have a business card? And someone goes, sure, and then writes their email on a piece of paper and just sort of tears it out. Like,
yep, that has happened to me as well.
And it's just a rough place to be in, because it's like, all right, now where do I put this that I won't lose it?
Yeah, that you're like, ooh, our professional relationship is already off to a rocky start.
Yeah, or it's like having somebody else read your handwriting as you hand it off. It's like, all right.
Okay, all right. So,
I was gonna say I think my final thought, I don't know, is just like, be nice to everybody.
Number one, always be nice.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't lead with this, but like, this is a convention full of professionals that are all doing what you want to do. Like, it never hurts to have somebody in your corner, even if it's just like the dude you bumped into at the bar, or like the person that you just sort of made small talk with at Starbucks. Like,
just be the nicest person.
Yeah, like you'll have moments where, you're looking for work or something, and then you'll see kind of a company hiring, and then you'll find out that somebody you know works there, and you have a great like spot to start in, saying like, hey, what does this place look like? What are they looking for? Can you help out? Like don't burn a bridge if you don't have to.
I think that is a wonder. That is whenever I'm asked to interview for like school stuff, like for our college, they're like, oh, like what advice would you give to students? My number one thing is be nice.
Yeah.
It's like a collection of like 500 people that do this very specific job in the whole world. You're going to work with those people again, or they're going to try and get you a job, or vice versa. Just be nice.
Yeah. You don't want to, you don't want to get you don't want to email the person that you were maybe a little bit mean to and say, could you help me get a job? Because it will most likely kind of end with nah.
Bad. No. Yeah. I've been part of like the hiring process at studios, and I've seen it where they're like, oh wait, that's so-and-so. Like, oh yeah, don't hire them. They suck to sit around for 8 hours a day. I'm like, wow, that was really quick.
Right.
Like, all right, bye.
Yeah. It's like, the people you go to school with, yeah, like you're saying, like, are the people you will probably eventually work with. So if you're not somebody that they want to be around, regardless of how good your work is, it just makes it that much harder to find your job.
Yeah, it definitely does not make your life any easier if you're a real jerk face.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Dewey. So I'm going to go over some bullet points and see if we can sum them up in a quick, like, I don't know.
Soundbite? I don't know.
Roundup. Yeah. Bang, bang. Roundup. Pew. Okay, so do you suggest portfolio reviews for people going to CTN?
Absolutely. Anybody will look at your work. Take that opportunity, learn from it, take notes.
I also agree. I think I lean more toward the get portfolio reviews from people at booths as opposed to the people at the big studio.
Yeah.
Like shindigs. But no matter what, get your stuff looked at, get the feedback that you need.
Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to do it. That's a big one.
Yeah, definitely. Also, next one, what is in your portfolio?
What's in my portfolio? Right now, it's a lot of characters, props, primarily characters and props is what I'm kind of passionate for, what I'm going for. I also have a reel of motion graphics work. So, yeah, that's what's in mine right now.
Nice. I think having a very specific thing, like, I am this and this. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no other room for interpretation. You can fill that need in a studio setting or a production pipeline, and they'll remember you for those things.
And it never hurts because I've had that moment. I think my first year at CTN, someone said, what do you do? And I went, and they went, nope, you need to know. Yeah, just bum, 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 bum.
All right. Next, looking for work in smaller studios.
Yes. Like,
you're darn skippy, yes.
Absolutely.
Get your sea legs, get some experience under your feet, work your way up to the jobs that you want.
Mm-hmm.
And is there any last thing you'd like to say for people considering going to CTN?
It's a great experience. Do it. I think we kind of went through everything, but yeah, it's definitely worth doing. If you can get a group of friends or people that you work with and go and just sort of like help each other out, get critiqued, like possibly get like ins and studios feedback. Like it's a very valuable tool.
Yeah, I would also agree. Go there, make some friends, and keep up with those friends. Like, Definitely. Make sure that you are a contact that they remember, and every time that you're back down there, make sure that you keep that relationship strong. You never know when you're going to need some help or they're going to need some help, and it will definitely make your life a lot easier down the road.
Absolutely. Like, even something as easy as just like having their Twitter handle, having their Instagram, like those little things kind of keep things familiar and keep things friendly. Yeah,
they remind you that they're a human and that you're a human and that you can talk to each other.
Definitely.
No, it is a wonderful place. Like, I know that there's like a little bit of, I don't know, strife over the price and whatnot. Like,
yeah, it is. I mean, this year I think it was a little bit better.
I'd heard that like the price got dropped down a little bit, but like, I don't know. I still think it's worth it just to go.
Oh, absolutely.
Meet some new people, hang out.
Especially if it's a first time getting out there. Like, I'm in school, starting to graduate, looking for work, seeing what's out there. Like, this is the place to do it. Or like, if not this, there are other like I can speak for like Designer Con, which is a big one. Convention. I think it's the weekend before CTN currently with mostly design people, and that's another great opportunity. Like, look, just like if not CTN, find like a social outlet for the art people and do that. Like, I don't know about Seattle, but I know LA, there are constantly places to do figure drawing or constantly like little workshops, and it's one of those things that like a couple hours on your Thursday night, it's definitely worth like spending some time there and meeting people.
I completely agree, man. All right, so I think that will probably do it for the CTN roundup with Jon Dewey. Thanks for hanging out and talking about stuff.
It was fun to do this. It was great.
Sweet. Yeah, so I think that should do it. You know, feel free to stop back and see what other things we're going to be throwing on here, talking about animation and art and interviews with other illustrators and animators and whatever else. Whoever else wants to talk.
Everything under the sun.
All things arts.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for stopping by, and thanks for listening.
Yeah, have a good one, everybody.